It's been a bit of drama this week with getting a game going. Yeah, we'll get Crimson Cantab in for a game after this one. You can play game 2. I'll just be one sec. I'll just make sure to let him know. Alright. We'll be starting in just a sec. Now we've all got fairly reliable connections, I think. Within the scene we all don't seem to really have any problems, or, you know, I'm sort of the only one that's really a problem just because of my distance. And there we go, we start first time in a 2v2, so sometimes things do go alright. And I gotta hope the music's up to an acceptable level, because I gotta make sure you guys get to hear the ballin' tunes in Age of Empires Online. But anyway, we're starting off on Ghost Lake. I've got Team UR versus Eerie and the Spaniard. So I'll just take it across in just a second. Man, I feel so slow today. So, spawning. Holy crap, they're in every single corner of the map. So, spawning in the top left side of the map, we've got Eerie as the red Persian player. Now I realise he's actually player 2. Alright, I'll just get a quick resign off, because like in 2v2, connection is really important. What? Okay, never mind. I spectator left because for some reason, basically when you're spectator, just as like a holdover from the old system, like basically a lot of aspects of this game were still influenced by Age of Empires 3 and Age of Mythology styles. I'm basically a sit-in player as spectator. It's a bit like sort of how StarCraft was in the first couple of patches too, where it had to actually be a spectator player with a preset color. Yeah, so what? I'll make sure I'm on the right UI screen. I am, for the time being. I'm gonna have to flick it in just a second. So, yeah, like I was saying, a lot of the engine capabilities are a bit of a holdover from an old era of Age of Empires, so to speak, and of RTS games. So I was leaving that to try and free up a bit of connectivity for the players. And I think Erie made a micro mistake, or an early macro mistake or something, just because he sort of was under the impression that it was just like a test start. So we have game number 1 kicking off for real this time on Ghost Lake, and we got, like I said, Team UR, Ultimate Raiders for short, if you didn't know what that meant, and Erie and the Spaniard for this game. We've got Crimson Cantab as a substitute right now for either one of these teams. And my game seems to be waiting. Here we go. Alright, so spawning this time in a top-down rather than side-to-side sort of position as the teams, we've got the Spaniard here as player 1, the blue player, spawning as Celts, and he's already managed to get onto his hunt. So here, player 2, Erie, has found his hunt. He's a red Persian player. And I'll just be 1 sec, I'll just fix this up. So he's taking his hunt, he's taking his woodline. Spaniard actually throwing down an early barracks. Casper, the yellow Babylonian player, clearing out his hunt. Well, his second, because he's taken his first, and Babylonian, they've actually got a mobile storehouse unit, the Ox Cart. And here in the top right hand side of the map, we have a purple Greek player known as UR Coolblade. So, yes, we have Clan UR on the right side of the map, and then 2 fairly regular faces within the community, the Spaniard and Erie. So, for those of you who don't know, the Spaniard is a North American caster and player, and Erie is involved in development as well as a repeat semi-finalist in several tournaments. And meanwhile, here in Team UR, we have 2 European members of the clan who are both starting to get quite serious with the game and really stepping up. And in the mid-map, we've got everyone fighting over. There's actually a lot of sheep in the mid-map, and typically with sheep, you only have 2 or 200 food, but on this map, the center ones, you've actually got 3 there. And herdables, they are the second fastest form of food gathering when there's no upgrades involved, but there's no actual upgrades involved for herdables except on the Celts. So early game, they're really worth going for if you get forced off your hunts, because they offer the most from villages. Your fishing boats actually offer the most at 1.9, I believe, whereas your hunts, it's like 1.1. Your herdables, I think it's 1, and then berries and farming to start out with, it's 0.9. So obviously berries is sort of the least ideal of the, well, farming's the least ideal because you've actually got to invest resources to get the slowest rate. Berries is just as slow, but there's a big upgrade you can actually take. The Picker's Gloves, which it's 20%, whereas Hunting Dogs is only 10% gathering rate. And like I said, there's no herdables tech, so in terms of an eco upgrade, Picker's Gloves is actually one of the most valuable in the game. And considering its cost, it's only 75 wood. Hunting Dogs also cost 50 gold. So you are sort of forced into gathering gold a little bit earlier on it. And to start with, in terms of the players, we've got Spears from both of Team UR. Erie seems to be, well, he's taken his age 2, so he seems to be macroing up quite heavily. And I'll turn off the chat hider in a sec. It all looks to be working well. Spaniard's actually got a fairly hefty spear count. Seems to be moving out at this point in time. just closed the chat, so I'm just going to turn off the chat hider. Yep. Try not to muck around with too much while we're in the middle of the game. So right now, second town center already from Eerie. So Eerie's play right now, because he hasn't gone the early barracks that every single other player right now has gone for, he's in a pretty big macro advantage. Although in saying that, if the others were to have pushed in together before this range had have come out, Team UI could have been in a really, really nice spot. So it is sort of a bit of a scouting, I wouldn't say fail, but well, in a sense, they've sort of missed that one, so to speak, because it's not necessarily going to end the game for them. But, I mean, if they go to push in now, they're really going to get denied. These spears are effectively sort of useless unless they were to try and, say, pressure Spaniard, who, in the meantime, being a Celt player, has managed to mass up a high number of his really cheap spearmen. They only cost food. All the other Civ spearmen actually cost gold as well. So you're actually sort of forced onto taking gold mines when you want to get these high spear counts. And in Babylon's case, they've got a lot of upgrades that take early gold that they're sort of going to be keen to get, as well as just going to want to spend a bit of gold and wood getting all their farms down, their gardens down, which is sort of like a farm you don't need to gather from. It's just passive income. It's there, cost no population. Obviously there's a bit of a build limit to them, otherwise they'd be outright busted in late game. But yeah, they are certainly worth the investment, and they actually even speed up your training and research time by 1% each. So that's pretty hefty. In PvE, I believe there's an upgrade to actually even double that. Well, in PvP, there's an upgrade to actually double the food. No, not double. Increase the food production by 50%. So that's an extra 0.5 food per tick on Babylon's gardens upgrade. So 1.5 per garden, as well as a really hefty increase to train time and research time. Not build speed, but train time and research time. So it is quite a hefty macro mechanic that the Babylonians get to utilize. Other civs, like the Persians and the Greeks, they're a little bit more standard. Persians have some nice defense options in their aid tent ability, and Gary might want to clear those before he takes a little bit too much damage on some of these bowmen, because if they are to come in at the front of the fight, they can fall quite easily. So that one there is quite low. This one also taking a little bit of damage. But in saying that, that's a really nice bowman count, and he does have that really nice economic advantage over every other player right now. They're a little bit slower on their second town centers. Coolblade's actually investing in walls too, which is a nice raid defense. But in saying that, is a resource investment, so it may end up costing him in the long run. Obviously, he's going to have probably floated a little bit more stone than the others in the course of taking that second town center, taking those walls, and preparing to take his upgrades. He's going to have to play a lot more around a stone economy than anyone else on the map as well. So that is the big downside of playing around a very defensive, totally sort of wall style. Right now, Eerie losing a couple of bowmen. Seems Casper's got a nice mixed defense here. He's got some bowmen of his own, even got a shield bearer in there. So the bearers, they don't do a lot of damage, but they got a reasonable bonus versus the range to give them slightly more damage versus range than other infantry, as well as being quite a fair bit tankier against them. They've got 70% pierce armor, so they're only taking 30% of the damage. Right now you can see the spearman falling, shield bearer running out on half health. So that's just a bit of a show of sort of counter unit versus countered unit. And up here on the top side, we've actually got some pressure from Coolblade, forcing a garrison here from the Spaniard, but doesn't seem as though the Spaniard's really lost anything from it. Coolblade's actually backed out before he's lost any units, and now he's going to try again. He's realised that the Spaniard doesn't have a lot of longswords here, so having enough hypers there, which are basically the Greek counter infantry unit, means you can sort of take this fight. It's a good number of spearmen here, but again, because there is no damage multiplier, they are a anti-cavalry centric unit. Eerie's actually sort of forced that to come in now. Well, not really, but he's going to come in and try and mop up as many of these units as possible, because the more he can, The less Coolblade's obviously going to have at home in later stages of the game, so they get a nice sort of trade there in the end. Although the Spaniard was denied a little bit of mining time in the interim. But down here on the bottom side of the map, Eerie has already got some Asabara. And here, top side, Spaniards finish gathering from just above Eerie's base. So working really well to sort of strip out these resources that might be a bit more risky here before they focus on the stuff at the back. So even though it's sort of on Eerie's side of the map, they can sort of, yeah, share things around the back side of the map later on. And Casper actually losing a couple of workers here. Well, one worker. And a couple others forced to run for their lives. Another actually falls. Eerie, nice pressure with the Asabara, the opposing cavalry. So one of them sort of getting stuck here. I think because they're all sort of rallied together, it didn't take the most efficient path to get out of there. And another couple of villagers forced to garrison. Eerie is probably going to get the ox cart. He does get the ox cart, so this is a bit of damage to Casper's economy already. Meanwhile, on the top side of the map, Coolblade is pushing across towards the Spaniard. So Eerie, in the meantime, knows that his ally is under a bit of pressure. So we're going to leave the Asabara over here. Maybe try and deal some damage to Coolblade in the meantime, because he's got everything over the other side of the map. So this is really smart to have them parked here at least, because Coolblade's going to see them, want to back off. Oh, he's even looking at moving in. So it's a good choice to move in here. He's going to snipe a villager. Maybe snipe another couple, which is always nice. He's got these really low Asabara, and without sitting them at home for 5 minutes under an aid 10, they're not really going to get to full health anyway. So it's a good use of them, even though they're really sort of trickling down. Eerie's economy in the meantime is booming. The Spaniards is probably in the next best position really, and he's raiding his opponent that's got the stronger of economies at the moment, because he's already put that pressure on Casper. So Coolblade in the meantime has sort of had Spaniard on the back foot. He hasn't really done any damage, but he's had a good opening initiate as the Greek player against the Celt. Meanwhile, Eerie has also sent some cavalry down here to put a bit of pressure on Casper as well, so he's really buying some time for himself and his teammate, the Spaniard, to really macro up, tech up, get a bit of an advantage over their opponents. So Spaniard on age 3, Eerie's already age 3, the Spaniard's queuing his up. Same time as Casper, a little bit quicker than Coolblade, so the left side team here has really managed to put a lot of pressure on their opponents. Spaniard's got a nice hefty force now. Eerie's earlier cavalry damage has really started to pay off. He's got a big bowman count compared to Casper at the moment, who doesn't even have a lot of bearers either, so things are going to look really, really drastic for the team on the right side, for Team UR. If the guys from the left side look at pushing in soon, which I think they will, and Eerie already got his third sound center up. Spaniard throwing up his. Casper's still got all these gardens unfinished, so that's sort of going to hurt his economy in a sense, because it's all these resources locked up, and he could be generating out of them. He could be making use of the training and research time reduction. So and right now, another bunch of Asabara working their way around. Coolblade in the meantime has walled off his base on sort of both sides except this little entrance here, so that's really smart of him, but at the same time he's gonna need to look at expanding out onto these resources, and Eerie knows that if they haven't expanded out now, they're going to need to in a minute or two from now. Both these guys all look at pushing out towards their opponents, so just checking that out makes him know everything that's going on. You can see a caravan that's had to sort of take the long way round, so he's going to know there's a market up as well. Casper still sort of just got everything rallied at home. Spaniard as well. While these guys here, Coolblade a little bit slow on being able to come across the map here. He's got all his bowmen coming across too, with all of his infantry. He hasn't looked at, say, moving out with his anti-infantry first, because they're the fastest unit in this composition. Even though they're not necessarily a counter to the Asabara, they can sort of slow them down or make the opponent think, oh shit, well I've got to move them out. So it can often be worth selecting them independently of your other units, just because they are the fastest unit of your pre-cavalry composition, to try and catch your opponent. And at least, yeah, just try and block his cavalry, and losing them is probably preferable to losing a villager at this stage of the game. So that's just something to keep in mind, guys, when you're trying to defend back in your base. You might want to try and select everything and move it to where the raiding units are, but it's a really good idea to then deselect the slower things and click again with the faster units, because they will break off a little bit quicker at their full movement speed rather than being hindered at the slower movement speed, and effectively stop yourself from goating yourself, which is, yeah, basically where you select your army, move out, you've got goats in the middle of it, they're full movement speed, everything moves at full movement speed, and basically all that nice shiny cavalry you had are just sitting ducks. So we've got some really nice mass bowman micro here from Eerie. He's just moving backward, picking off a couple of units, checking out what's at the back as well. He can see a couple of slingers, but he knows he's probably going to be alright, but he can see, ooh, there's another force here of Coolblades coming in just down on top of it. So this is a really nice collapse from the UR players. Coolblade coming in at a very good time to pick up some good kills. He's even got some cavalry mixed in. The Spaniard in the meantime hasn't actually moved out onto Coolblade, so there's sort of not really a punishment from the side on the left in response to this, and Eerie has his forces thinned out a little bit, in saying that he and Spaniard are sitting on a little bit more resources than the guys from Team UR, who right now are sort of trying to position themselves in the mid-map in anticipation of, say, a dual attack or the Spaniard moving out. Obviously it looks like they're thinking they might catch him here. There's been a lot of walling actually by the Spaniard on this top side, a little bit by Eerie down here as well. This is quite an aggressive wall actually. He wants to try and take advantage of all these resources here. Even though he's got his caravan line here, he could really have had a bit of a safer wall there, but sort of opted to bring it a little bit further forward. In the meantime, Eerie trying to suss out where his opponent's armies are at, and his small number of range to being picked off. And right now, got the Spaniard, all his stuff has sort of just been sitting here at home waiting patiently to defend. And it looks like he's going to have enough to hold here really, because this army is quite large. He was maxed out at 180 population, he's down to still about 170, and both of his opponents attacking into him are at only about 120. So in terms of army size, he's not too badly off. He just needs to get something to try and deny the Saris here and try and survive long enough for Eerie to deal some damage both to this army and around the map. And I think Eerie's probably going to follow up with something pretty hefty. He's got this whole army here, although he's got everything moving at the speed of the war wagon, so that's probably not ideal. If you're, you know, and I'm sure he knows this, you know, Eerie's a much stronger player than me, but basically if he's sitting there with the war wagon, whoops, this cavalry could have got here a lot quicker than it did. But in saying that, he might want to just try and babysit everything, because it's not a huge force necessarily. It's been a good push from Team UR, who've come in quite decisively, and they've managed to snipe a good deal of the Spaniards' army. He's down to only 120 population. Eerie's sort of forced to have to defend. Casper's actually saved a good chunk of his force, while the rest of it's still causing a bit of mayhem. Coolblade saved a bit of his forces as well, so it looks like the economic advantage the Spaniard had has really started to sort of go on the decline. He's spent a lot of that resource bank. He's definitely still in the game, but he's got nowhere near the score lead he had over his opponents but now. So Eerie, on the other hand, has still got quite a decisive score lead, and it's got this large force here. Looks like the Spaniard's going to do a perfectly fine job of holding here. Eerie actually watchtowering these forward resources, because then he knows if his opponent takes the ones that doesn't take them, they've got to be on the back. So sort of really smart play from him, and good, smart play from Spaniard here, actually walling off all of this top side. These gold mines, these 2 gold mines, are actually safe from his opponents at this stage, and you can look at showing up more here. And Coolblade's actually rallied off villagers from finishing the siege workshop, and if he had have had that up in time, he could have looked at putting a bit of pressure on, as this force is pushing into him from Eerie now, and Eerie's got a really nice count of these war wagons. He's doing a good job of defending them too. Doesn't want them to get sniped, so I suppose that's sort of why he's keeping everything all moving together. But in saying that, I guess there's, you know, hindsight and everything. And he's doing a really, really good job here of splitting his forces up to keep the war wagons alive at the back of the army and just deal tons and tons of damage to everything in Casper's forces, and Kool-Blade as well. Whoops. Doesn't really have enough to hold from this follow-up push from the Spaniard. He's remaxed behind this, done a really good job at spending up behind this, and has really bounced back in score now. That's done a wonderful economy behind this. 87 and 100 villages versus 70 and 67. So Casper and Kool-Blade only about 70 villages. Their opponents at about 90 and 100 each. So in a bit of an economic sort of slide compared to their opponents right now. And Erie is going to look at sniping this town centre with all of his war wagons. They don't really have to look at putting pressure on much elsewhere because they're managed to really break through here now, and the Spaniard is really keeping Casper at bay while they, the pair of them, pick apart Kool-Blade. The town centre falls. More production facilities are going to fall. They're going to pick off this range. They're going to try and pick off the stables as well. So the Spaniards' cavalry are really putting in the work now. And meanwhile, he's got a really, really big bowman count, and Kool-Blade resigns. Casper resigns. GG. What happened to the music? Okay, it's still there. I'm just going deaf. So, I'm gonna have a quick look at the quest stats. And I better turn on the chat hider. Alright, so we're going to have a quick rundown. We've got the villager population, so the most important fundamental stat in the game. And for some reason, Erie had the lowest villages at some point, despite having the faster town centre. So I don't know what the hell went on there, but it went on there. But anyway, by the time the second town centre was finished, he's called back up again. So I don't know what went on there. And then, yeah. Actually, that's probably where he got his market. Anyways. Big dip from the Spaniard from that push from Team UR, who, yeah, didn't really lose a lot of forces as well at the same time for it. Because really those two dips are smaller than that dip. And they also did a fair bit of damage to Erie as well for very little cost, but it just wasn't enough to keep them in the game. And GG. So the Spaniards units, obviously Celtic infantry, extremely cheap, sort of throwawayable in the early game, but come late game that sort of changes. In terms of buildings, Casper really sort of a bit behind the others. They really finished off a lot of those gardens. You're doing a good job at raiding everyone. So GG guys, we're going to get into game 2. That's enough of a shit talk. Alright, enough of a wrap up for today for game 1. I'll return to city. So, we're going to do the teams as, guys. I will just figure this one out. Alright. We're going to do Cool Blade Neri versus Crimson and the Spaniards, so... Holy crap! What is going on today? Which one's got less letters, Sean? Use your noggin. What the hell did I just move? Oh, that was the number. Okay. Sorry guys, just gotta pretty this up. Gotta make it look beautiful, okay? I need to get some cool looking verses. Alright. So we got... What do we decide the map? Inland, that's right. So was it inland? Yeah, it was inland. Game 2 for the 2v2. Sorry guys. We're a little bit disorganized tonight. That's partly my fault. Well, probably mostly my fault because I mean I'm in charge of this, so I'm not in charge of the project, I'm in charge of the show matches. So don't get me wrong there. I just sort of walked in one day and went, I'm gonna cast games and give people handouts to play. And Dev was like, cool. So... Man, I rabbit on sometimes. So I got my chat hider on. The microphone's working. Everything looks alright. The server's started. I mean the game started. So here we are on inland. So spawning in the top we have Crimson Cantab as the blue Greek player taking his hunt. Gathering some more wood because he wants to throw down a starting barracks. The Spaniard. The red Kel player taking his starting hunt. Looking at throwing down his first barracks too, I believe. Yep, he's getting his now as well. So We've also got Coolblade down here as a Babylonian player in the yellow, and he's taken a second Ox cart first. And over here we've got Eerie as the purple Norse player who's taken his first 2 storehouses again, so he looks to be playing quite greedy in a sense. You might be looking at getting an H2 or slower barracks, just waiting for throwing axemen, because a lot of the time, unless your opponents both rush you with the spearmen straight off the bat, you're going to be able to hold with your initial throwing axemen anyway. So looks as though everyone's happy with the game. They've all taken a hunt, so I might as well resign and turn off chat hider. Oh yeah, turn off chat and chat hider. The things I do for you guys. So over here we've got Eerie just macroing up. We've got Coolblade just macroing up. I think I might be looking at taking another Ox cart as well. So looking at getting his the 3rd Ox cart before barracks or before age. He's in a position to actually age up here as well, so it's quite nice for him. Oh shit, I just broke a peg. That's why you don't leave him out in the sun. Take him in when you've done the washing. Just trust me, it will save you money. You won't have to buy pegs when they get bleached with UV rays and the plastic all starts leaching, and you get self-conscious about your pets or your kids inhaling plastic dust. At least that's if you're a man. So we've got some initial spearmen coming across the map from Coolblade, and they've been picked up by Eerie scouts. So the fact that he's on Norse with the 2 scouts, he's got 800 HP to sort of play with there to tank. Other civs only have got like 600 or a little bit more. I think it sort of varies from civ to civ. But yeah, the melee scouts only get about 600. The range scouts, Egypt's range scout, I think gets a little bit less, or deals less damage. But anyway, there's another longhouse being thrown down here from Eerie, because otherwise it's going to get population capped. He's going to get it up eventually, and he does. But he did have to sacrifice a bit of gathering time for that. Crimson's got a good number of spearmen here. It doesn't look as though Coolblade's been under attack just yet by the Spaniard, but it looks as though the Spaniard's looking at picking on Eerie as well, so they both want to single out Eerie before Coolblade gets his economy going as well, and the range is coming out, so that's a nice choice, but is he going to be able to get a good number of ranged units out in time? He needs to be able to get purely bowmen and needs to get them out fast, because there's a good spear count up against the Norse player who hasn't managed to take an H2 just yet. He's taken up a dock in the meantime though. So Eerie, he's not gathering a lot at home at the moment other than the stone, and a little bit of food down here, but he's losing a couple of villagers for doing so, and he is on the dock though. He's docking up as much as he can. He's got 2 fishing ships already. No one else has yet taken the waterline at all, so Eerie is sort of able to bounce back from that, but he's taken a couple of villager losses already as well. So he's on 18 villagers, Coolblade's on 21, Crimson's on 17, Spaniard's on 20, so not quite sure why. Oh, yep, Crimson's actually hit age 2, so Crimson had a bit of a villager, had a bit of a trade-off between villagers and aging, and picked aging. Maybe he wants to try and get a second town centre quite quickly, but it looks as though his opponents aren't going to be too much behind him on that. Eerie doing a good job at defending the dock, repairing it, getting that 3rd fishing ship as well, because the fishing ships and the dock, well, the fishing ships repair each other, they can all repair the dock. Just needs to make sure to not lose this next one, which he might do. Spaniard's actually sniping a fishing ship off him, so really smart. It's coming in now, tying up the army of Eerie, while Crimson has a go, but Eerie's repositioned his fishing ships now, and Coolblade, he's got some stuff heading over now. So right now the heavy spear count of the north side is sort of forcing the south side to have to play from the back foot. Right now Eerie's having to hastily try and defend under the town centre pull. The fairly squishy but cheap Celtic Spearman in under the town centre to take that little bit more extra damage. In the meantime here, Eerie is going to have to try and repair this, but Crimson has sort of been countered by Coolblade in the sense he's got the Bowman. He's going to be able to deal a lot of damage quite quickly to this infantry. It only takes 3 or 4 shots from the Bowman to kill the infantry, so... But in the meantime, the Spaniard's going to try and take this dock, but Eerie is distance fishing. He wants to know what's going on the coast, and this is all good. This is good from him because he's going to be able to pick that up as soon as the Spaniard goes for it. Coolblade losing his scout in the meantime for this, though. Coolblade throwing up some gardens. Hasn't taken his town centre just yet. Actually seems to be going a little bit... Oh. He must be getting the town... Oh, sorry, I thought he was gathering stone already. Mustn't have been. So Eerie's over gathering on stone. Eerie's got tons of stone behind this. Is Eerie trying to go for like a fast fort town centre or like double town centre or something? I don't know. He's got he's got over 500 stone now. He's done a good job at holding off though. Both Crimson and the Spaniard are a little bit behind in terms of score and economy. So Eerie taking a second water now. Spaniard's only taken the one. Crimson hasn't taken any water just yet, so Eerie alone has more going on the water than either of his opponents. Coolblade, on the other hand, has just got a really nice on-the-land economy. Is banking a little bit too much in terms of resources, but has a good garden count up already. And yeah, it's just moving on to stables and archery ranges here at home. Oops. So we've got another engagement here, and the Spaniard has managed to actually sneak the dock in, but Eerie already has the longship on the way, nearly done, and not taking too many losses on the land. He's transitioned onto the throwing axeman already, losing a dock though, losing a fishing ship though, so that's a little bit costly for him. Let's be interested to see how well he managed to micro here while holding off Crimson's army as well. And in the meantime, Coolblade sort of needs to apply a bit of pressure somewhere around the map because Spaniard's going to back this up with the guard towers, so they make it very hard for Eerie to come close here. And the longships, I don't think they're as good at actually fighting as the swan ships on the water. But in saying that, it's 2 versus 1. And the villager building the guard tower does fall, so that's going to get denied. Crimson and Eerie are both on this lake at the moment. Seems like Coolblade's just messing up a good count of archers before he looks at pushing in, but he's got a lot of food in the bank already. Still actually gathering with food gatherers, so if he's got this many gardens, he probably can look at cutting most of that food gathering. Crimson trying to move in on Eerie, but accidentally attacking one of the fishing ships there, so Eerie is going to know all about this army. In the meantime, has managed to win the water back off to the Spaniard, and now his teammate Coolblade actually backing him up with a couple of archers here too, so when it comes to like a fight into the Greek player, this is going to be very handy for Eerie to have Coolblade just there as well, so it has comparable range to the Toxotes, the bowman. Otherwise, if Eerie's mostly investing in throwing axemen on the land, which it seems that that's all he really can afford at the moment, it's been quite hard for him to actually take fights against Toxotes. But in saying that, this many throwing axemen against that few hypers is not a good fight for Crimson, so he's forced to have to back off there. In the meantime, his trireme does pop out, but it's 2 versus 1. They are going to stack right on top of the trireme, get that damage off as quickly as possible. The fishing boats do survive. Meantime, Coolblade going for a bit of raiding on the Spaniard. It's going to kill a couple of villagers here, I think. Yeah, so he does manage to snipe at least the one. Spaniard doing a good job trying to take up the water in the meantime because he's got this dock safely just in front of Coolblade's base. He sort of hemmed himself in here. He's not really looking at coming up towards the dock. But saying that, Coolblade is applying a bit of damage to his village account now. He's managed to kill a fair few number of villagers actually, and these lancers versus the long swordsman, that'd actually be a reasonable trade, even with the slingers there. But he's got a really nice count of them at the moment. Lancers sort of circling back off towards Crimson's base, and right now Crimson has actually lost this water. So Eerie has managed to win a lake off each of the players off the north side. In the meantime, Coolblade has massed up a good number of lancers here. He's going to try and hit Crimson's base, but there's going to be a bit of a nasty surprise here. There's a couple of spearmen here on defense, so he's forced to have to try and deny the gold expansion here, which he will do. He'll get a villager in doing so, and he's going to try and circle around, see if he can pinch something off the Spaniard again now, I think, or see if there's a market line, because there is one quite nearby. There's caravan running here from base to base. But he better not overextend with these lancers, because they are going to run into a much bigger count of long swordsmen and the slingers now. And there's even a druid at the back there to heal them up a bit. There's no pharmacology tech yet from the Babylonian player. If you don't know what that is, you need to read a book. I mean, you need to check out Babylonian and check out the pharmacology tech, which is a +1 health per second regeneration upgrade. So here he's got a good raid account now. So these raiders are going to come in quite handy. They're going to be able to deal some good damage to the Saris and to any of the villagers. I think they will win the straight up fight versus the Saris, but they are slower. No, they're actually faster than the Saris. So the raiders are quite good to have in that situation. And Crimson is having to try and re-rally everything back now with the slower units, so he's constantly taking damage as he does so. Meantime, Spaniard and Coolblade are sort of just having a bit of a standoff here. Eerie trying to go for some harass on Crimson's villagers, but losing longships in the process. But I think he doesn't necessarily mind losing longships at this stage of the game. He's won the lake back off his opponent, and it looks like Eerie is successful in fishing off these two lakes. Has really contested and maintained all this side of the map. Crimson's sort of having to hem himself in now. I think he's eventually probably going to ride off that town center, so to speak, because right now that's a big raid account from Eerie, and it seems like he's just massing more and more raiders. He's got the 3 stables, just, well, 2 of them are pumping, 3 of them are pumping now, so it's actually coming in on the Spaniard before the Spaniard can get too much walls up. The Spaniard is known for being quite good with his heavy wall play, putting them down to lock off resources and really cut down sections of the map. It's sort of something he really stood out from his play, even sort of before he got as strong as he's gotten as strong as he has. I think his walling is sort of one of those things he's always really paid some good attention to. And Eerie, but it seems this time Eerie is successful at breaking through those walls. And right now Eerie sort of locking up Crimson, while on this side of the map Coolblade comes in on the other angle, and Crimson is not able to actually catch these raiders, I don't think. So not even the Prodromos can catch the raiders. So in the meantime, what's going on in Spaniard's base is utter carnage, utter chaos. There is just things dying everywhere. And so there's a couple of lancers sort of being sacrificed here, the sacrificial lamb, while Coolblade tries to find one last node or 2 last nodes to try and hit, and he is going to find it here. He's going to get a couple of villagers down here to the south, just rallying what little left he has now on the other side of the base. In the meantime, Eerie has come back over onto Crimson's town centre. He's going to try and get the TC snipe, probably going to go for the villagers eventually as well, but the villagers actually do get garrisoned. Well, they attempt to get garrisoned, 1 or 2 of them fall, and Coolblade is actually still down here because Crimson is forced out of the Spaniard's base to repair his own. And there's still a couple of bowmen here picking Picking off structures here, so the Spaniard sending things across to come and deal with that. The Spaniard doing a wonderful job at trying to maintain vision over his opponents, and there's just this line of watch posts everywhere. But in the meantime, the town centre just about to go down and does fall. Eerie definitely successful in taking that. He's coming right up to the waterline. He wants the longships to get as much damage and as much threat of this army as possible. So he pulls the Raiders back successfully, saving 19 of them, snipes the town centre. Crimson forced to have to put it back on the further back node, try and keep it away from the waterline, but in saying that, it's going to make it harder to try and gather any of this, so perhaps not the best decision. Meantime, Coolblade has forced the Spaniard back off the water. He's got a nice force himself here, so 82 villages and 81 to Eerie, and 79. 46 to the Spaniard, so the Spaniard really having taken a huge hit economically. I think he'd be on comparable villages to all the others. Coolblade, funnily enough, in the lead with the village count, despite Eerie having this double water, and Crimson really having his market probably the most well established over his side of the map. Oh, actually, I take that back. It's a really good market line from the south side. I must have missed that. Coming into the game, it's just been really action-packed so far since about age 2. So right now a bit of a skirmish being taken here. And Coolblade, I think, is going to be on the back foot here. There's just that many slingers. And Crimson is here just to back him up, just in case. And I think the pair of them together are going to be able to do it. But what's this going to cost them elsewhere on the map? Eerie is not going to stay idle. He will punish them for this. He will not stand for it. But he's actually is the one getting the punishing. He loses a raider there, pulls back out. Crimson has just got Prodromos at home. Really smart of him because he knows at this stage of the game the Babylonian and the Norse player are probably only going to hit them with ranged units. So Spaniard Scout doing a little bit of damage to the spearman building the wall, but it's not going to be enough. He's going to fall bravely in the line of fire, and there's another watch post being thrown up by the Spaniard. So the Spaniard really taking care in making sure he can see everything that's happening. He's really worried about the raiding of both Eerie and Coolblade. Coolblade, despite not necessarily being a top level player or having much in the way of tournament experience or competitive experience, is really quite solid in his raiding, really quite solid in listening to other players' feedback and just general game mechanics and economic management. So Crimson and the Spaniard are having to do quite a hefty job in keeping the pair of these guys out of their bases, because Eerie is an utter demon at raiding people. And right now there's even a bunch of throwing axemen engaging here. They're gonna be able to get a couple of villages, I think. And Coolblade under a bit of attack, but I think he's in a well enough position to be able to hold here against both of these guys, because there's not a lot of units here from Crimson. He's having to divert a bit of forces up here. Meantime, Eerie's hit all the way back at Crimson's base. Managed to sneak up onto the high ground, get some good kills, and try and back out in time. So Coolblade is holding here on the south side and over on the west side of the map. Crimson is forced to have to repair this town centre. Lost a couple of villages initially. Eerie throwing away a couple of throwing axemen, but I think it's going to be a worthwhile trade for him. The throwing axemen at this stage of the game, 60 resources spread across 3 of them. This stage of the game isn't a huge cost, and if it's causing economic damage on your opponent, that's utterly brilliant. Right now, Eerie again, consistently just raiding his opponents to death. So there's a lot of caravans actually falling for both the north side players because of all these low health raiders that just haven't been quite finished off yet, and the Spaniard just doesn't have enough at home to really be able to deal with this. He's lost a lot of his forces down here on the southern side with that fight against Coolblade, who in the meantime has re-rallied, has maxed out with a high number of lances, and is running straight across to try and snipe these markets, snipe the houses, destroy the worker count again, and they might be able to force a GG here, but Crimson in the meantime come along with a good number of Prodromos, and Eerie has sort of pulled back because he wants to try and focus on Crimson again. He's chucking down this mid-map fort, but in the meantime down here, all these Prodromos are going to clean up the Lancers, so the Lancers, they counter infantry, the Prodromos, they counter cavalry, so it's not really a fair fight for the Lancers to be trying to take. On even numbers, the Prodromos just utterly wipe the floor with them. And Eerie, nice forward fortress here, is going to guard the berry bush, this forward tree line. He's going to be able to see what's going on here from Crimson, if anything sort of does actually rally around the around the wall and the wood line there. It's actually double walled here. He's got a single raider held up in there. He's on long service leave, that guy, away on holidays. So, good number of mounted archers here from Coolblade actually. Wants to be able to take a good fight against the Prodromos, and the mounted archers are going to be the way for him to do it. Meantime, Eerie is backing him up with a bunch of spearmen, a couple of Harjars as well. So, this might be all these guys need, but looks like Coolblade needs to look at advancing here. At the same time, he's going to get a good catch on all these bowmen. And he's looking at throwing something down here, I believe. He wants to do something. What resources is he waiting on? He's just waiting on a bit of wood, I think. Yeah, so Coolblade with a really, really close proxy workshop towards Spaniard's base. He's just on that little low ground there. It's going to get seen by the fortress though, unfortunately for him, but is it going to be built in time just to get 1 or 2 siege units off? Because that could really be the kicker here. Because if he can, he might be able to snipe the gold. And so Coolblade sort of sandwiched between his two opponents now. His cavalry numbers are being whittled down, but Eerie in the meantime has a huge number of Alphadans. He wants to be able to wipe up any cavalry, any ranged, anything that isn't infantry right now. He's going to be a huge threat to with these one population absolute monsters, and he's got 86 of them. They've got, holy bugger, they got 36 DPS, and then they've got a 6 times multiplier against range. They literally one-shot any range. They're like, these guys are like woads on steroids. Just look at them go. They're just cutting through that wall like a hot knife through butter. He's got 92 of them. Unbelievable. Eerie is completely maxed out right now. Coolblade also just about maxed out, and their opponents just absolutely done for, I think, at this stage. Crimson, about 160 population and falling rapidly. His ranged army is just being absolutely butchered right now. The Spaniard, his economy has just been utterly in tatters for the last couple of minutes. I think he's just been staying in just to see how much longer they can keep going for, and just to see if they can actually recover from here, because he has been non-stop trying to remake these villages, but he's still only up to 60 of them. And these Ulfs are being spread in 4-5 different directions. He wants to be able to destroy everything inside Crimson's base, utterly wreck the economy. He's going to get the market. He's going to try and deal a bit of damage to the town centre as his teammate comes in to finish it off, and he wants to destroy half a dozen production facilities at once. That's Eerie for you. And he's going to even pick off a bunch of these caravans as well. So I think Crimson's economy has just been utterly decimated behind this. It's not even going to be able to remax without building a whole bunch of houses and production facilities and a town centre. So the Spaniard in the meantime, oh, Coolblade in the meantime, actually, I think he did get the siege tower off. Yeah, he did get the siege tower off, and he's throwing up a fortress now. The Spaniard done a nice job at walling up, but he doesn't have anything to help back his teammate up here from now. GG. It's all up to the Spaniard here. Never mind. Alright, so I'm going to turn back on the chat hider so I can see what the guys are actually up to. And we're going to do a bit of a stats wrap-up. Doesn't want to show. Okay. Yeah, that was a pretty good game. I really enjoyed casting that. So, Erie's economy just absolutely powering into the front of the scores by the end of the game. In terms of the villager populations, looks as though Crimson really had the highest villager count for a lot of the game, and I think with the fact that he was trading so heavily with Erie, that was sort of really showing. I'll have a quick look at resources. So Erie topping the food, but not by a great deal, even though he had the double ponds, considering the other person on lakes was Spaniard, and he actually was the lowest of the food count. But in saying that, Spaniard really copped it in terms of early aggression and raiding from his opponents. He and Crimson weren't really successful in being able to decimate Erie's early economy, and then in turn, Erie and Coolblade sort of focused on Spaniard's economy and really crippled it. As well as did a bit of trading with Crimson, but I think that was sort of really the tipping point when we had a bit of a look mid-game at the worker count, and Spaniard was down by about 20 or 30 still over everyone else. And it's not because he was missing workers, it's just because he'd literally been raided that heavily by the opposing team, and been unsuccessful in defending that. Yeah, that's just sort of how things went. Anyways, guys, GG. It's a bit of a quick look at the stats. We're gonna travel back home and do a third game, I think. Actually, we probably shouldn't do a third game, considering Spaniard vs Coolblade should be now. So It was Coolblade versus Spaniard for game 2, wasn't it? Alright, sorry about the delay, guys. Oh my goodness, I've forgotten about the bloody map thing I have. Okay. Alright. Cool, alright. I'm gonna go for a quick cigarette and then time to play. Alright, I'll be like 2 minutes, guys. So we've got the first actual 1v1 series. So player colors actually matter now. So Coolblade will be player 1, blue player in all the games. So we have a Celt versus Babylon game coming up between UR Coolblade versus the Spaniard. Did I say it was on Ghost Lake? I hope I did. Anyway, it's on Ghost Lake if I didn't. So, let's see now. Everything appears to be in order on the overlay, which is always a nice welcome sign. So, spawning on the top side of the map as the blue Babylonian player, we have UR Coolblade. And spawning on the bottom side of the map as the red Celt player, we have the Spaniard. So, right now both players are looking at taking their first hunts to begin with. There's none of that cheesy instant rack stuff. Well, what am I saying? It's not that cheesy. It's actually pretty much meta in a lot of matchups. Although, in saying that, for Babylonian, they're probably going to want to open with a range in this matchup. Considering the Celts do have really cheap infantry, do have really strong infantry with upgrades that they can take in Age 2 that no other Civ can. So, the Babylonian player, on the other hand, they've got access to both bowmen and slingers, well, a ranged and a counter ranged in Age 2, and they're the only Civ that does so that early on in the game. So it's really sort of good for them to make use of that fact and open with the range in the matchups where it's going to really be favourable for them to do so. A couple of these 3 sheep gatherings already been scouted out by the players. Spaniard actually rallying his scout just about straight across, missing the sheep actually, and Coolblade also missing them, so both of them probably not paying as much attention to their scouts as they could there. Coolblade getting his barracks down now, a little bit late behind the Celtic players, and this is why if you are going to go for a late production facility, you might as well just hold off and get the range. The Celtic player is going to get 3 spears up within the next 30 seconds, or 33 seconds, and all of a sudden your life is going to be hell because this barracks is going to finish up pretty much as they're marching across to your hunt. So if you basically dick around with your villagers long enough and keep them alive, get the range, you're probably going to be in a much better position. Considering Babylonian, because they do have both ranged options available to them, to counteract that and make them not broken, they don't actually have a counter infantry unit. They've only got, well, they don't until Age 3, sorry. These Royal Guards are, yeah, basically the latest first counter infantry unit that you'll get access to in the game across any Civ. Whereas everyone else gets theirs in Age 2, like the Longswordsman, the Hyper, the Axeman, the Throwing Axeman, and so on. So a couple of Spearmen actually forcing a worker pull here, and not actually managing to deal any damage, so Coolblade has managed to pull these back just in time. His own Spearman dealing a bit of damage now. So he's actually done a reasonable job at defending here. although I was criticising his early barracks play, if your opponent doesn't also have essentially close to optimal use of the spearman, a lot of the time you can come out basically being able to just, yeah, rely on the barracks, take a second, take a range as a second or even third production facility so you get stables. But yeah, at the high levels of play, it's probably preferable to go with the range. Goes for Persia too. In fact, the only civ you probably don't or can't play around the ranges on are obviously Egypt, where you can't, and Norse, where you just don't want to because your range is just going to be slingers, which are going to be useless against infantry, against Celt infantry, which are just going to march through your front door and mow you down. Surprise, motherfucker. I probably should stop swearing on the official stream. I'm sorry about that, guys. I just thought it might make it a bit more lively. But anyway, we've got Spaniard marching some spearmen across. He's taking his H2, getting some more spearmen behind this. Coolblade also getting a lot of spearmen. Already got his H2, getting a garden, well, got a garden, getting some more houses. Both players are a little bit slow on taking their second town centre, really. Spaniard is going to have the stone for it quite quickly. He's got 5 villages on it, but he's already got a lot of wood in the bank. He could already probably be throwing down another barracks, or getting off the wood to gather more food, so he can keep pumping out the spearmen. He's not going to be able to, unless he unqueues one of these villages. So there's just these little macro mechanical errors that the guys are making that are slowing down their builds overall. That aren't terribly huge things, and obviously with a bit of good unit control and following up with better refined macro play than their opponent, at least, is, you know, means they can still win games, but it's not necessarily ideal. And there's a war going up, a big, I wouldn't say a great wall of Dak, it's a reasonable sized wall. It's not quite a great wall of Dak, but it's a reasonable sized wall. You might get punished by these spearmen because, in a sense, he's going to lock up stone to throw wood to throw this down. Babylonian are the only civ that get wooden walls. They're actually clay walls, but they're made out of wood. Figure that one out, guys. There's a lot of spearmen here actually to deal a healthy amount of damage. He's going to lose one here though, and if he knows his opponent's this late on the range, he's better off dealing the damage now before the bowmen get out, than delaying any longer and not getting anything. Like, getting this worker kill is good, but realistically he probably could be putting the pressure on here. Snipe this instantly, because that's going to be the kicker, because if Coolblade can micro this archer in between the spearmen like he is about to do here, he's going to end up trading quite heavily here. He's got a second bowman now, and these guys are going to deal a lot of damage to the Celts. There's a second town centre being thrown up though in the meantime, while Coolblade's actually opted for a garden, still getting the stone for his second town centre. He's going to be able to defend this though quite handily, because he's got these bowmen here now. The Spaniards sort of massed up a good count of them, but not really enough to be able to overwhelm his opponent. And yeah, comes off not really any better, not really any worse. He's on 25 villages to 25 of his opponents, so other players in necessarily good or bad state, but in saying that, the Spaniard has got out this second town centre a little bit earlier than Coolblade, who's, yeah, still having to get the wood for it now because he's throwing down so many houses. So Coolblade sort of on the back foot here economically. He does have a garden, does have a second garden on the way, but that's not really going to make up for the fact that he's going to be behind 3 or 4 villages come 1 minute's time. So Spaniard already up to 29, Coolblade 29 as well, but yeah, basically 2 villages versus 1 in terms of production, and right now he is housed again. So no disrespect to either of the players, because they're doing a reasonable job, but there are these, yeah, little macro errors that they're making that are slowing them down a little bit. Looks like the slingers are, yeah, going quickly onto the bowmen, so that's good control from Spaniard to do that. Because obviously the bowmen, they're going to really cut through the army of the Celt player if they are left to just, yeah, keep on attacking from the back. And the slingers, on the other hand, they'll really cut through the bowmen quite quickly. Really tanky against bowmen, especially later on in the game, and effectively useless against infantry. So it is quite important to be managing your unit counters in the middle of the fight, to be microing all your units onto high priority targets for them and on away from high threat targets for them. So interesting placement for the town centre, because it's not up against, say, a wood line or a gold deposit. It's sort of just actually guarding this forward hunt. And the Spaniards actually taking a fairly distant hunt over here, so that's quite interesting. But at the same time, Coolblade is going to have to work to try and scout that, because it is quite a distance away from his opponent's base, and it's not necessarily just in front of him, so he's going to have to keep scouting. He's actually rallied the scout in with his army. Rallied the scout to go and check the other side of the map, actually, to see if Spaniard might have anything proxied, or yeah, sort of just waiting there on his doorstep. And the cool part about Ghost Lake is this Ghost Lake, this frozen lake in the middle where you can't actually build on. You can travel across it still. So Coolblade really having to work to micro his bowman back out of here, because his front line really being cut through by the Celt player. He really needs to look at transitioning to the Lancers, which he is getting now. He's throwing up a couple of stables actually. So this pair of stables is really going to come in handy for him, because as you guys just saw, the Celts, because they've got counter infantry and the Babylonian stone, it's really, really hard for them to take fights just with infantry as a front line. They really, really need Lancers there as a supporting tanking unit, because especially if they can pick threat off a lot of the long swordsmen, that's a lot of damage that's not going towards the infantry. That's units that aren't bum rushing straight onto the bowman and effectively making their range null. So Coolblade sort of really having to panic and wall up here, but he's doing a nice job, because he's going to force his opponent to funnel into this weird little choke, and if he can get the range up, the guard tower up in time, he might be okay here. But I'm not sure if he's going to be able to now, because that's a really high slinger count. There's already 33 slingers from the Celt player, who's really avoided getting a lot more in terms of his infantry, and I think he's probably just going to follow up with spearmen by the look of it. Yeah, he's just going to keep following up with spearmen, because he knows Coolblade is really only going to look at tanking with the Lancers and try and get some slingers out of his own, hopefully. So Coolblade, things aren't looking too good for him. He really probably needs to get some, well, he definitely needs to get some slingers of his own out here, but it just looks like there's too much on his doorstep right now. So there's a couple of Lancers holding off quite valiantly, and like I said, these slingers do very little damage to the Lancers, but there's just not really enough here for Coolblade to be able to hold with. I don't think he's going to lose this forward garden. This forward town centre is going to take a lot of damage before it's able to push these units out, and it looks like the Spaniards just going to be able to keep reinforcing this, just keep parade pushing, because there is no pressure around the map from Coolblade. That he doesn't have any fighting units at the moment. He's got a couple of Lancers here, but they're going to have to help defend. They're not going to be able to make it out to actually put pressure around the map for him. So the garden, it's been repaired. The villager, she's really earning her wage this week. She's actually managing to save the garden in the face of all this, in the face of all the suppression. She can do it. But in saying that, these druids are really putting in the work for the Spaniard, who's, yeah, microing the slingers back. He's going to slowly chip away at the Lancers and kill them, but Coolblade can't afford much, and Coolblade doesn't really have much in the way of gold. I do like this little wall off here of Coolblade, so don't get me wrong, I think that's really, really creative. Really, really nice. Why spend the money on the gate when you can just defend, right? Genius. Utter genius. Absolutely genius. But the Spaniard is looking like he's in a really, really comfortable position right now. He's in age 3. He's got a 40 population lead. He's going to go for the 3rd town centre soon because he's got plenty of stone in the bank. Just needs the wood actually, which he's probably dumped in getting even more slingers because he's back up to nearly 30 again, and now he's supporting with a couple of spearmen, a couple more long swordsmen. Perhaps just going for just spearmen even, probably fair and fine here, I think. Because he's got plenty of wood, plenty of food, so realistically, if you get out another barracks, he can just absolutely flood his opponent with spearman bowman from here. Spearman slinger from here. Well, Coolblade is going to have to really sort of play catch up, really going to have to try and harass around the map, because right now the Spaniard is taking every single gold mine he's found so far. And the longer that goes on, the worse it's going to look for Coolblade, because the Spaniard's just going to have so much in the bank. The gold mine just gives you just that little bit more gathering speed on the gold than any other Civ gets, and if you can take advantage of it, it just makes it really hard for other players to roll over the top of you come late game, just because they will not have the gold to afford for anything, and you'll have the gold to afford a million infantry or a million range, or even by then a million cavalry. And right now, I think Coolblade's composition sort of counters Spaniards here, because the bowmen and the slingers are just going to get absolutely picked apart by the lancers, and there's a couple of ranged of Coolblade's own at the back here, so this army of Spaniards is going to be relatively ineffective, but I think it's the one that he's going to transition to next is what's really going to make the difference here. And he's actually getting call to arms, so he's getting villager damage upgrade. I'm not quite sure why that would be. Maybe it's in case he's got to take any fights around the map with his villagers. I'm not quite sure. Is that accidental? Did you mean to click this? Do you mean to click handcart, bro? Or are you gonna raid villager v villager? Or villager v longswordsman? I want to see that. If you can do that, that would be impressive. Getting a couple of word raiders now, but really I think if he just mustered up a 1,000 spearmen, he'd be able to run over the top of these lancers, because the spearmen are just quite cheap, quite quick to build. The woads are actually a little bit expensive in terms of gold, so let's mouse over one here. 50 gold for a woad raider, and they don't get a multiplier against cavalry, so these woad raiders are going to be quite useless against, as you can see, quite useless against the lancers. And he's Coolblade's sort of only forced out once Spaniard actually gets some horsemen in the mix, because transitioning off the spears onto the woads didn't really seem to come in to be any advantage there. And behind this, Coolblade has effectively cut all of his range production anyway. He's just getting lancers and infantry, and even a couple of mounted archers now, and he has got the pharmacology tech, so he is slowly healing up. Everything is ticking up 1 health per second from whatever damage it's taken, so the more of these quick little skirmishes they can take, the better it sort of is for the Babylonian player, because the Celt player on the other hand, he's actually got to get druids from that position, and constantly, if you keep sniping the druids, to actually maintain that healing. But in saying that, this is a lot of gold for the Spaniard. He's got 4k gold in the bank by now. He's got a town center advantage. Coolblade is doing what he can to stay in the game. He's keeping his garden count max, he's adding more production facilities, even transitioning onto the farm and protecting his market, so I think a lot of the score is down to the fact that Spaniard just has so much gold in the bank, and it doesn't really seem like Spaniard's taking terribly effective fights a lot of the time here. these mounted archers are going to split off here and going to be able to deal some damage to the economy. There is actually an auger out in the field, so the Spaniard wants to be able to make use of his rights. And he's going to... Oh, one of the augers does get quite low. Doesn't quite fall, but over the other side of the Spaniard's base, Coolblade is doing a really, really nice raid. And he is actually catching some caravans out of the market line and picking them off. Going to get a production facility here if Spaniard isn't careful. A couple of the augers go down, so that's a big gold cost to the Spaniard. 150 gold each, these augers. So even though he's got a lot of it in the bank, it's still a bit of a loss. And Coolblade, on the other hand, yeah, has crawled up to a 1k bank lead, 1k bank on his gold as well. Seems to be taking the lead in terms of population now. It's about 40 up. Has really started to decimate the market line, and it's just starting to harass one of the gold mines now. So the Spaniard sort of really starting to slow down now, but I don't think Coolblade realizes just how much actual gold he's got in the bank, and that going after the other resources is probably going to be where his big boon is going to be. But again, the Woad Raiders against an army of mostly cavalry units, so relatively ineffective. But in saying that, there's a good number of mixed range here for the Celt player, and he's got this fortress up as well, so I think the Spaniard will be able to hold here. But how much damage can Coolblade do to him in the meantime? Like, Coolblade has managed to catch up in terms of score. He's done a wonderful job at catching up here. He's going to, yeah, sack both the markets, going to take the gold, and going to try and find another angle here instead of running directly into the fortress, because he knows surely there's something else on the map he can take that's going to be a little bit less dangerous. He's actually come down here, split his mounted archers off to come and harass the workers on the gold mine itself, while these ones, yeah, are attacking the actual gold mine structure, scouting out with the lancers. Meantime, the Spaniard has actually got this forward fortress, so this is an interesting play here. Coolblade snagging a couple of villages of Spaniards on the wood line, and looking at running everything down through his base now too. So he's got 15 villages in front of him he can clean up quite easily here, so he's flanking around. The Spaniard in the meantime has run his army down to the backside of the base, doesn't have a lot of army in the meantime. So the Spaniard, yeah, doesn't seem to have a huge army, and a lot of it is locked up in rams. He's got, yeah, basically 12 population of his 50 supply army locked up in rams, and a lot of the rest of that is still actually locked up in production. He doesn't really have a lot in this position. He's really running low on wood. He's got a lot of gold in the bank, but he can't build any markets. I think that's sort of his problem. He's just got so much gold, but he's not gathering any other resources to build a market to transfer it into something else. And Coolblade is just picking him apart everywhere on the map. He's attacking production facilities, trying to get the grows, trying to get some more villagers. Doing a wonderful job at it, but in saying that, there's a big number of rams just outside of Coolblade's base, which he's going to see just as they move out. A lot of units of Coolblade's forced to have to retreat back now. So the fact that he is on a pretty much purely cavalry army at the moment is going to really be a nice saving grace for him, because he's going to be able to clean this up quite quickly. But the question is just how much damage can Spaniard do in the meantime? Because he's going to get some houses, going to get a couple of buildings, other structures here. And this is going to buy him a bit of time to get some more other stuff out in the field. Coolblade is going to have to try and spend a lot of wood now, trying to, yeah, get a couple of houses back up, trying to repair these stables or throw up some new ones just in case. Throw another couple of segments of wall up, and now that he's upgraded them, it's actually going to cost quite a bit of stone instead of costing him just wood. So looks like both players trying to scout out, trying to, yeah, find something on this bottom side of the map together that's going to be really give them the oomph going into late game. And right now, Coolblade managing to deny this expansion of this little fortress creep that the Spaniard's trying, and he's going to be able to mop this up quite quickly. There's a good number of horsemen here from the Spaniard, but I wonder what Coolblade is looking at getting... In the meantime, he's got some more Lancers. Coolblade's actually got quite a fair bit in the bank. Needs to throw up some more houses. I don't think he realises that he's lost the houses just yet, because he's still sitting on 155 population. Can't see any houses coming up at the back of his base either, so... Right now there's a big force of the Spaniards. Just pummeling his at the moment. In the meantime, he's on the southern side of the map, trying to find stuff to kill. And I'm not sure what he's doing, why he's just trying to come back. He really needs to look at taking the priest out of that army, because it's really slowing him down. The priest is travelling at 6 movement speed, which is locking the Lancers out of 4.5 of theirs. So that's really being costly for him, and he really could have looked at getting... How many... There's 22 villages there to actually pick off. That's just huge. Even though Spaniard's got this force on his doorstep, if he picks that off, gets the houses back up at home, he can look at really putting a huge dent in the Spaniards' position at the moment. So I think he's going to look at trying to do that. Even sending the priest down there now too, actually, to try and get a couple of converts. So a little bit cheeky, and I wish him the best of luck with it. He is going to get this fortress off the Spaniard now, who in the meantime is doing some raiding of his own, attacking the gold of Coolblade, who doesn't actually have a lot of gold in the bank. This could be quite critical for him, because the Spaniard has got nearly 7,000 gold. Coolblade doesn't. Coolblade's got a couple of 100 gold, 500 gold to be exact. And I don't think he actually knows about this up here. So that's another 9 villages of the Spaniards that are going to be safe for the time being. And the Lancers aren't going to be much match for the Horsemen. There's more Horsemen than Lancers. And that's not a good trade for the Lancers already. So Coolblade's sort of getting caught out on the bottom side of the map now. Even though he's dealt a good amount of damage, getting 13 villager kills. Quite hefty. The Spaniard only on 56 villages. Coolblade actually on 74. So Coolblade's economy in much better shape than the Spaniards in terms of villager counts. It's just that the Spaniard has so much early gold from those gold mines. It's ridiculous. He's got nearly 7,000 gold. But his economy isn't in great shape in all other aspects. He hasn't got a lot of wood, hasn't got a lot of villages. And a lot of these unit choices aren't really doing him a lot of favours. This mass cavalry army from the Babylonian player is putting in the work, and if he can figure out that he's got a couple of sacred deer mixed in here, he could really be sitting pretty. Little cavalry raid from the Spaniard going into Coolblade's base. So I wonder if he can deal a bit of decisive damage of his own and try and snatch this one back from the jaws of victory. Actually, snatch this one back from the jaws of defeat. Snatch it from the jaws of victory. In his style. Yeah, so he gets another couple of nice house kills. Pulls all of Coolblade's army back, who are almost get awkwardly caught just outside the wall. Coolblade is going to have to try and gate that up at some point, because he needs to get his units through there. Oh, that's not so good. But perhaps he's seen that, so at least he knows about it. In saying that, Coolblade has got this really sort of greedy gambit of a town centre, because he knows he hasn't got that nice advantage the Celt player does of being able to just throw a gold mine over them. He knows he's probably down in terms of gold, because right now, in terms of most of the other economic aspects, he seems to have a really strong lead over the Spaniard, so he probably realises that that initial gold lead the Spaniard would have from all those gold mines is probably what's keeping him in the game at this stage. But the Spaniard just really needs to get some more spearmen, some more horsemen out, because right now he just doesn't seem to have enough. Those are some really pretty arrows of his though. Is that arrows of the Ice King? Oh man, they're pretty. Big shout out to the devs for creating Arrows of the Ice King in the in the most recent event, which is actually still on for another fortnight, so you guys should check that out. Really good rewards, some really fun mini-game quests, and some good PvP quests as well. Nice legendary quests as always. And so, a lot of houses are gonna fall here, but this isn't so good for Coolblade's army, because he is going to lose a couple of cavalry for this. In the meantime, he has finished off his town centre. He is going to try and take a workshop just down the road from it. Just going to be able to protect that one that little bit better, and he is going to find a huge number of villages here if he watches his map, which he's not. but he's actually sneaking around here. Try and pick off that proxy stables of Spaniards, and it looks like Coolblade. He's in a really nice position yet again. The Spaniard down about 90 population. There's a siege tower that is going to fall, but not before pulling a lot of workers away from gathering to kill it. So Coolblade with his 92 workers to Spaniard's 63. He's managed to deny that little proxy. And if you can find this little cluster of villages, I think that's going to be the death knell. But in saying that, Spaniard is down but not out. He's still going. He's got more gold at home. He's still throwing up some more storehouses. He's got some more production facilities, but he needs to be a bit quicker in throwing up some more. Yeah, there we go. He's got a whole bunch of stables at the back there. He really, really needs horsemen. If Spaniard builds anything other than horsemen for the next 2 minutes, I will honestly slap him. Because he really, really needs horsemen to pull him out of this. There's just so many lances. There's a couple of mounted archers. Coolblade has just been pumping out the cavalry, and without pretty much purely horsemen and spearmen from here, I don't know what Spaniard can do to pull himself out of this. More and more siege towers are coming in from the top side. Plenty of lancers just running through the Spaniard's base. So many villages are falling. He's down to only 50 villages versus 92 of his opponents, so he's only got a bit over half the villager count of his opponent, and a lot of them are sort of idle. He's sort of forced to throw up double storehouse on the hunt, and GG. So what a game that was. Coolblade, I thought, was quite a fair bit behind, but the Spaniard, I think, really just banked a lot, way too much gold in a sense, trying to deny the gold on the map, sort of thinking it maybe a step ahead, and not really playing around. I think the comp that would really win him the game there, if he just had, say, horseman or horseman carpenter or horseman spearman, I think that's where he'd really fare well against this almost purely cavalry composition from the Babylonian player. But yeah, GG guys. That was a really nice back and forth game. So Spaniard did some nice initial damage to Coolblade and kept him a town centre down in the early game, but I think Coolblade just dug deep there, just realised what he needed to transition to deal the damage, get the extra raiding pressure off, and try and snatch the game back himself. So yeah, GG guys. Actually, I better change this. Oh, it's best of 3. Yeah, do. This one's on. I've got to change. Equal? Yeah, it was equal. Alright, so for game 2... Are we having any civ swaps? Okay, well it looks like the Spaniards actually bowed out. So I do not know where to go from here. Actually, oh cool, alright. Well it's nearly 11, so Well, series number 3, because it looks like Spaniard has bowed out for the night, so boy, you guys have made it a bit of an up and down week. Alright, cool. Well, we got Crimson versus Chandler coming up. Oh, what the fuck? Sorry, I just ignored Crimson and then unignored him. Well, it looks like no equal footing just yet. We still have another Ghost Lake game coming up. I shouldn't have picked Persia as a spectator because you see this tile set? It's the same color as the donator text. So it's awfully hard to actually read who the donators are, doesn't it, guys? I know this. I'm well aware. Just give me a second. I'm going to try and invite Chandler. I'm going to go for a quick smoke break. And then it's time for Chandler versus Crimson. What did I do with my ladder? Cool. Alright. And the player colours I've given... Why am I showing that screen? I'm sorry guys. Silly me. Ghost Lake, yep. Crimson on blue, Chandler on red. Sorry for the unprofessionalism, but that might have something to do with the fact that I'm not a professional. And we got an Egypt mirror and Ghost Lake to kick us off with Chandler versus Crimson. I've been eager to cast this one because Chandler has a really nice, varied playstyle, and Crimson is largely used as the measuring stick. If you can beat Crimson, you're good. If you can't beat Crimson, you need to work on a lot of things in your game. He's just sort of used as the measuring stick, unfortunately for him, because he's just like a solid entry tournament level player. So like, yeah, people use him as a measuring stick. Me, Carnage, and a couple of others, typically. But anyway, kicking it back off, we've got the blue Egyptian player here in the bottom corner. It's Crimson, the man whose ears are probably burning right now because of all the talking about him. And Chandler up in the top corner, his ears aren't burning just as much just yet, unless Casper's thinking about him or talking about him. He is the red Egyptian player. And it looks like Crimson's actually going to take a second storehouse while Chandler looks to be going for the early barracks play, I'd say. So it looks like both of them are pretty much okay with the way the map's turned out. So that's bloody good, because I'm going to turn off the chat hider and turn off the chat. So all their complaints are now forfeit. I do not care anymore. Actually, I do sort of care for their player well-being and all that jazz, because I'm sure there's an esports union out there that cares about people that aren't making money. Not about the fact that they're not making any money, but about the fact that they're being abused by someone like me. So it looks like Chandler's actually picked up a big haul with these 6 sheep, and he's gone for a Templar Ra actually, rather than going for a second storehouse and taking it. So this is a bit interesting. I'm not quite sure what he's trying to do here, because he's going to get this quick age too, but he doesn't really have the wood to invest in any tech just yet. While Crimson is sort of just chilling. He's got his typical double storehouse. I'm just sitting here. Take me third storehouse even. Get me stoned, and get me second town center, and kick it off for a long one. In the meantime, Chandler's actually forcing out a second priestess quite quickly, and hasn't actually taken a second storehouse just yet. Throwing down a house, actually. Wants to be able to guard those stone gatherers quite well with that house. I'm sort of not trying to just take the piss within that there either, because trying to wall off your villagers from sort of either direction with buildings, particularly houses, is pretty useful. But in saying that, I just thought it was a bit strange to see him throw up this wood storehouse so late. He is getting a nice timed handsaw though, while Crimson is just only hitting age 2 now, so it's going to be a bit of an interesting gambit from Chandler. Crimson setting up to take this hunt down over here, and he's actually rallied some villagers up this side as well, so maybe he's looking at... okay, here we go, he's going for the town centre now. And that's a nice spot for it, because he's going to be able to guard both the stone and the gold mine. So we've got a little bit of a scout skirmish going on here. Just give me one sec, I just want to check something. Oh yeah, cool, alright. Things all seem to be in order. Now, barracks coming out for Chandler. Crimson at this stage still hasn't got any form of military production facility just yet, but I think he probably feels as though he doesn't need one just yet. If his opponent hasn't hit him with spears by now, he's probably playing something fairly greedy himself. And which he sort of has in a sense, because he's got the second priestess out, he's getting the stone for a second town centre. The barracks is really only being finished up right now. I'm not quite sure why he's got so many on the sheep, because I think he'd probably be maybe better off going with the hunter bull, because it is faster. As I mentioned earlier in the show match today, the herdables are the second fastest before any upgrades, but if you're in the position where you got like 5 or 6 on them already, maybe you are better off just taking the upgrade and going on either your berries or even just another hunt. Like, hunts just in general are nearly always worth taking over anything else, except for maybe docks or water maps. You generally don't want to restrict yourself to no hunts or only one hunt gathering for the most of the early game generally, unless basically it's a water map, because then you can play something even greedier. So he's got a lot of villagers actually climbed up. 12 villagers in fact gathering out of these sheep, when realistically there could be 2 sets of 6 on 2 hunts, which he's got one here, he's got one here. He could look at doing that, and if they're going to try and open this greedy into one another, I think that's probably what's going to fare him better. Because Crimson's already going to get some camels. That's been his first production facility. He should go straight to the camels actually. And the thing with mirror matchups, if your opponent's army sort of counters yours or his strategy counters yours, you're really going to feel it, because it's a completely symmetrical fight. So if you've got that advantage in the symmetrical lineup, there's not a lot your opponent can really do in the short term to adjust to that. Chandler is going to get this stables up, but he's going to lose a couple of villagers, I think. Does actually manage to save the one villager, but the stables is going to get denied by a little bit of time. And he's pulled one of the priestesses off the town centre in order to be able to do that, so the build time advantage of that priestess isn't going to be as significant. But in saying that, Crimson has decided to opt for one himself, a second macro priestess, because if Chandler's got one, he's going to be pumping out faster villagers and he'll be able to play the catch up in economy. So in terms of villagers, Chandler's actually got the lead, despite the fact that Crimson had that initial early town centre, just because there's no priestess on it for so long. But he does have a nice cavalry count here. Well, Chandler is opting for a sort of mixed approach here, and he's continuing to add more slingers actually. Hasn't got any camels just yet. I think he's just got to get some more houses up before he can add some more. Meantime, Crimson is just going for pretty much pure stables opening in this one. Notices the scout but thinks, bugger it, they're going to be just as fast. Oh, actually, it's going to take me that much time to kill the scout. Even though I'm fast on it, I might as well just rally straight across. Because he saw that Chandler did have a bit of a cavalry count disadvantage there. So it's going to be hard for Chandler's forces right now, because the cavalry units are generally going to be the best option in any fights where there isn't just some clear-cut counter, just because of their tankiness and their population efficiency. They're a very fast, very tanky unit. All cavalry are in AoE, so it's quite important to try and get on them, keep them alive, and make use of them. Chandler adding another barracks and another stables. Meanwhile, there's a Templar set coming up for Crimson, so Crimson wants to take a fast stage 3 behind this. He's only got the 2 stables, and he's probably going to look at expanding into even more of them. So getting some forward houses here to help guard this sort of front line bit. And a couple of villages of his are going to get picked off by Chandler's, but not before he actually manages to micro them as well out as he can and bring his cavalry back himself. So he might manage to pick up a couple of these camel riders himself. Look at them just sauntering around. They make the funniest sound when they... Look at them go. Quit bloody chasing him and just push into his base. Nice watchtower here though from Crimson. So the third town center going up now for Crimson. Chandler still in age 2 at the moment. He's actually a little bit ahead in terms of population. And is getting a really quick Templar set himself. Has the resources to be able to take a quick town center behind this. In terms of villages though, it's 45 to 48, so Chandler's actually done a better job at getting villages up behind this. Because at the time that second priestess came out, that he had a 2 villager lead, he's managed to open that up by another villager. Obviously that must have been... Actually he had a 1 villager lead and he killed 1 villager, I believe. I don't know, I could be wrong. Anyway, Chandler's got some cavalry here, snuck him in behind. Fortress coming up for Crimson. So these villages are going to get caught out. They are going to get out just in time. And a couple of camels of Crimson's are going to fall here. So he's actually down by quite a fair bit of population, Crimson. Chandler, in the meantime, relatively high population. Doesn't seem to have thrown away as many units in the fights. Getting in other stables as well too. Crimson taking a fairly distant market and a fairly close wall to his opponent's base. This fortress is going to have to put in the work. Crimson's going to have to want to focus with both town centers on targets. Get that little bit of extra range out of town centers as well. What are you going to priestess set here? Try and cause a little bit of insanity amongst his opponent's forces. For those of you guys that don't know, insanity or chaos is basically, it's like conversion, but instead of giving the unit to the other player, it makes it like a neutral aggressive all unit. So it really does add to the confusion and the chaos. Oh, a lot of workers here of Chandler's are going to have to be guarded by these couple of camels, and there's even a couple of chariot archers here to pick them off. Elephant now too. But Chandler has got some more cavalry of his own, some camels to help clean up these chariot archers. In the meantime, a couple of priestesses of Crimson's being picked off as well, because he's trying to take a fight here with only a small number of elephants and chariots and come off worse for wear because of it. He's going to lose this elephant now too. And so Chandler is actually still got a small lead over Crimson here, really. It's up to 71 villages, 71 for Crimson. So they're equal on that, but his population in terms of military is slightly larger. A lot of idle villages there. Oh, there we go. Chandler's just sort of splitting his cavalry out of the rest of his forces, and then, yep, there we go. So he's splitting his camels out of the rest of his army, wants to deal a bit of damage now, and keep some stuff back at home to defend with. Big number of camels, actually. big number of villages that they're about to run into too. So they're all forced to flee back for the time being, so that's a bit of gathering time. Let's cut from Crimson's economy, and Chandler again going to try and circle around, get another couple of... Oh, get a storehouse instead of the villages. So the chariot archers are actually a little bit slower than the camel riders. So things have sort of slowed down a little bit now. Nice fortress here from Chandler. Going to guard a lot of resources with that. In the meantime, Crimson has got a good number of elephants now too, so... And a good number of chariot archers. And Chandler managing to find a bunch of caravans of Crimson, so he's going to be able to spot the market with this too. This really sort of greedy market line, probably not the best idea for Crimson. Perhaps tucking it in back there might have been ideal. And these war elephants are going to constantly be guided by the camel riders. So does Chandler have enough to fight off all the elephants? They deal a nice amount of area damage, and he has rallied some units to the back to try and kill the camel riders as quickly as he can too, so that's smart of him to finish them off like that. And right now Crimson is again a little bit on the back foot, but he's got a nice amount of gold in the bank. Right now there's a big engagement. I don't know if Crimson's really got the units to fend off here. He's only got a couple of elephants and a couple of cavalry really, and Chandler has just got this big force on his doorstep. I can say that now, Chandler seems to slowly be gaining a population advantage out of this, and has wiped the floor with the front line there, and now he's through. Crimson is back to holding with units popping straight out of the production facilities. This is not good for him, and this is great for Chandler. Right now there's villages falling. There's units just as soon as they're coming out of the production facilities are falling. Caravans are falling. The fortress is losing health. This is not looking good for Crimson, and Chandler's population seems to be just shooting back up towards 180, while his own sort of sitting at around 160, so it's not looking good for him. He's going to lose this fortress, I think. Chandler might have broken him here. The fortress is down to only 1,000 health. It's going to fall soon. More and more units of Chandler's just piling in around the fortress. He's going to take it, and he's going to kill some more caravans. And Crimson is just defending with everything he's got, and it's not a lot. He's got chariot archers popping out left, right, and centre, but they're just dying left, right, and centre. All these upturned carts everywhere. Priestess set just popping out now and falling. That's a fair bit of a gold hit towards Crimson's economy, so Chandler really pushing into him right now. I don't know if Crimson's got enough to be able to hold from this position. Another priest set coming out, but that's another 80 gold of Crimson's. It's just money in the wind, basically. And now Chandler is going to try and take this forward town centre off his opponent. Crimson got this panic fortress up the backside of the base going up now just to protect the farms, and Chandler's just got even more coming through the front door. He's still up by about 10 populations, and he's taken the town centre. So Crimson is going to have to try and get his own town centre up again somewhere. His main town centre has been destroyed. The second town centre looks to be falling. There's no workers around any of the farms on any of his 3 town centre spots. He's back down. He's up. He's down to 69 workers compared to 79 from Chandler, who's getting more and more upgrades behind this as well. The score really seems to be tipping towards Chandler's favour at this stage. He's sniping, yeah, more and more units as they're coming out of the production facilities. He's trying to gather over his opponent's side of the map, and Crimson's sort of forced to get a tower to try and defend this, but there's a couple of slingers here as well to try and help out for Chandler. Meanwhile, over on the top side, he's getting a fortress, so he's going to get towered on this bottom side, but he's going to fortress his opponent on the top side, and Crimson is really struggling now. He's down to 110 population. Still about 60 or 70 behind his opponent now, so that's a big dip. Sorry guys. Sneezing me face off. So 2 town centres to Crimson have fallen here. This third town centre here doesn't look as though it's got enough here to defend it. There's just nothing here around it. Another fortress of Crimson's being thrown up. Has he even got another town centre? I don't think he does. Crimson doesn't have a town centre anywhere, except for this one here that's about to fall, so Chandler seems to have broken him now. Crimson, yeah, has a 2-minute timer. Come on mate, throw up the town centre or get out of here. Chandler is just overwhelming his main base now. He's pushed him off this top side. Crimson has got this bottom side but isn't even gathering off it. He's losing workers. Things are really not looking good for Crimson right now. He's got 100 seconds to do something here. I don't know if he's got the resources to do anything in that 100 seconds because he needs to get some stone immediate. Oh, here we go. So he's got the town centre going up, but is it going to be enough? He's back down to 56 workers. Chandler's up to 76. I think Chandler may have done it from here. GG. So Chandler victorious in game number 1 in an Egyptian versus Egyptian game on Ghost Lake. So Chandler just seemed to hit that number of villages and then just stop and just push into his opponent from there, and Crimson on the other hand just wanted to keep scaling his economy up and just didn't seem to have enough to defend there. But GG guys, this brings us to game number 2. Alright, so I'm just waiting for the players to get ready. Alright, so game 2 will be on equal footing. I'm just going to take a quick smoke break and we'll be back for game 2 of Crimson versus Chandler. Bit of an upset victory in that last game. Alright folks, so we are back, and we've got a Persia versus Persia game coming up by the look of it. Another mirror matchup. Gone PvP, anyone? That's my StarCraft joke for the day. Okay, Chandler's accepted, so I think we're going to go ahead now. So we are bringing you all the action live here on Project Celeste. Okay, and it did start in the end. I thought it wasn't going to because I didn't get the little ping sound. If you don't get the ping sound, you know it's usually not a good sign. So we are on equal footing. And right now here in the bottom side of the map we've got Crimson looking to take his first hunt and look at going for an early barracks, I think. Chandler looks to be going for his first hunt as well, so interested to see if there is a difference in the early build order and if it ends up being what makes the difference this game. So Chandler actually going for a fairly early scout, wants to know what his opponent's doing. Crimson already getting that early barracks, so Chandler in the meantime, I'm not sure what he looks to be doing. Maybe getting his as well, a little bit slower perhaps. Doesn't actually go all the way to scout, just picks up some early goats and backs off. Maybe that's all he's after, is just the goats this early on. So Crimson's barracks, about 2/3 done. So Chandler's throwing up his first barracks, because in the chat here, I've actually missed this. Chandler has asked Crimson, what about a treaty to not spar a bar early? And Crimson's replied with, whoa, 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 I don't know about that. To which Chandler has said, I'd take that as a no, and thrown down his barracks. So it's a really interesting bit of banter between the two of them. And I can actually turn off chat hider now, because we're a couple of minutes in. And I'm not going to call for restarts from here on out, so stiff shit. So that late barracks of Chandler's does get scouted. He's got a couple of idle villagers actually. Here we are, they're getting back to work now. Meantime, there's a couple of early Sparbara coming across the map for Crimson, and there's just continual production of those. He's actually, yeah, just now taking his storehouse for his woodline. He's already got these 3 Sparbara. There's no aid tent just yet from Crimson, from Chandler, but he is taking it now, so Crimson needs to look at moving in fast before that upgrade finishes, otherwise he's not going to get a lot out of this. But I think he's just waiting for the 4th and 5th Sparbara, because he knows he's going to have a big unit advantage as well, so be interested to see if he takes his scout in with the fight. He's keeping an eye on Chandler's unit counts by the look of it, and he goes, yep, it was later than mine, and there's only a couple of Sparbara, they're at the other side of the base, I'm going to go in. So he's pushed Chandler off. Chandler has taken the aid tent tech, but not stuck around anyway, and it looks as though the storehouse is going to fall. That's a lot of Sparras, and they're going to take this. They're going to be able to take this fight too, so Chandler, already being denied off his original hunt, is having to go on all these goats, but he's already got, well, he's got 8 goats, I think. Crimson in the meantime keeping his workers up, cut production of his Barbaras for the time being. I think he wants to try and take an Age 2 pretty quickly behind this. He's sort of dealt the damage he needed to deal. So he just probably going to get another couple more Sparras. He's actually queuing up a couple more now actually. I was going to say, thought he was just going to wait for the couple more heading across the field and then go in, but he's actually, yeah, even queuing up some more behind this. Wants to try and deny another structure. Getting the house. Dealing a bit of damage to Chandler's wood line now, so the villager does fall. But there's a nice number of defensive Spyro here, so Crimson is going to have to look at backing off. But he is stacking them up in the meantime behind this. Verada has come online. Verada has come online, guys. Can you believe it? Because I can't. And there's a forward storehouse here from Crimson, so he's going to look at actively healing up this force of Spyro as they weave in and out of his opponent Chandler's base here, which is a really smart tactic because the storehouse costs only 50 wood. It's pretty much a priest unit. 50 wood, takes up no population, has 500 health, so anytime Crimson even takes a fight here or comes back to this point, he's going to get a hell of a lot of healing out of that. Taking his second barracks in the meantime as his Age 2 is kicking in. So he's going to be able to follow up with a range or a stables behind this as well. And probably look at trying to seal the deal. I think Chandler's going to look at trying to throw up the second town center and defend from here. But I'm not sure if that's going to be the best strategy considering he's sort of on the economic back foot. If he tries to do that to get ahead and Crimson... Oh, Crimson has a lot of stone. A ridiculous amount of stone. 500 stone. Why have you got so much stone, my boy? 500 stone. That's 200 more than 300, guys. And if you don't know the significance of that, boy, am I worried. But Chandler is going to look at moving out now, and it is going to get spotted by Crimson. He's going to see it happen just as he's throwing up the storehouse. He's going to see the Spyro come in, so he's going to get a good idea of how many his opponent's got, and it's a little bit less than the number he's got. So with the double storehouse here, if he just chucks the third one up right up on this corner, I think it's going to be very, very hard for Chandler to defend from here. And so both players within the healing range taking that fight there, which is not good for Chandler. There's another storehouse being thrown up, so there's going to be plenty of healing here. Chandler's not going to be able to heal up as quickly because he doesn't have the storehouse stacking. Maybe if he parks his army right in the middle of there, throws up a third one right here, perhaps that could be the advantage he needs in this matchup. It's a very funny matchup when this sort of thing happens, and it's just, yeah, a tent v a tent line. Whoever can get more Spyro and transition to either get some archers and deal a bit of damage from the back, or get Asabara and actually raid the other is probably going to be the victor here, unless Crimson can just overwhelm his opponent. Oh, he nearly gets it out. He nearly got him out then. There's 10 versus 17, so this isn't looking very good for Chandler. He's got the one barracks. He's still on the... he's got his second town center up just before Crimson, but he is only on the one barracks. Just getting his second one now, but I don't know if it's going to be too little too late because, yeah, they don't do a lot of damage to these Spyro, but when you've got that much of an unit count advantage over your opponent, you can eventually just start chipping away at the villagers. And even with the A10, it's just not going to be enough. So Chandler having to back off from his stone, but he's actually gathered an awful lot of stone. I think it's because he's worried he might need to repair the town center. Then saying that, he's down to only a Spyro here, and Crimson's still got 10 in his base, so... So Crimson backing off, he's got half a dozen injured Spyro who are going to heal up quite quickly. And Chandler, not too shabby of an economic position, he's still on equal worker cap, so that faster TC undid all the economic losses he took, but he is still down a production facility. Well, sorry, I was going to say he is still down a production facility, but yeah, he is still down a production facility because now Crimson has added in Asabara, and Chandler's going to look at trying to get an early armory out, and I'm not sure if that's going to be a terribly good choice considering the units that he's got available to him. Spyro and Spearman I think he probably would have been better off maybe going for a range in this position. In fact, Crimson, I've missed the fact that he's also got a range behind this, so Crimson's actually 2 production facilities ahead, and Chandler's not really in a position to even be taking armory upgrades. He doesn't have the forces to utilize them, I don't think. And right now, I think Crimson's done it, really. He's got enough Sparabara here that if he doesn't just throw them away, probably should look at trying to take the fight with them though, because it's a good count here from Chandler, so Crimson's not going to be able to take the town centre itself, I don't think. And there is a couple of storehouses here, so they are healing the few of Chandler's units that aren't actually... I mean, the few of Chandler's units that are actually taking fire. So Crimson is sort of forced to back off now, but Chandler is forced to have to try and repair this town centre, and is overextending a little bit here. So the scale mail is going to sort of come in handy now. I didn't think he'd hold that, but I didn't think Crimson was just going to try and Zerg rush the town centre there like that. I think if Crimson had have just tried focusing on the workers there, it would have dealt that much damage to Chandler, rather than dealing half the town centre's health in damage. You know, if he had have actually killed all these villagers, actually had have taken the fight and killed the units as they were coming out, he probably would never even had to have backed out there, I don't think. And now he's going to have to try and be on the ball with his scouting, because Chandler is in the position where he's going to be able to start doing things around the map, start, you know, expanding onto these hunts, things like that, because he's going to have to, for one, because he's going to run out of resources in here, and 2, he's going to, you know, want to, so then he can eventually, yeah, proxy something further out or sneak some units around the side. And these Sparabara have actually got their armor upgrade, and it seems to really be doing a nice amount of work, because the opposing for Sparabara just don't seem to be getting any damage off against them. But in saying that, Crimson, because he has the mixed unit composition now, is sort of undoing that. And if he comes down with these, he's going to really hurt Chandler's economy here, I think. It's actually a forward barracks being thrown up right here, which is quite smart really, because then there's effectively no travel time for the units. A couple of spearmen actually by Chandler, so not a bad choice considering, yeah, these Asabara have come in at this time, so the spearmen are helping to keep them at bay. But it's going to be quite easy to pick them off with the bowmen now, so really big counter bowman actually that are going to come flanking around this side. I think Crimson's going to try and pincer attack his opponent right now. He's forcing him off this hunt and looking to try and intercept the spearmen as they come out, which he's done a nice job of. Chandler is a little bit unaware of this bowman move out and is now going to have to try and retreat from this position. Crimson taking his age 3 in behind this. Chandler queuing up a whole bunch of units to produce, but he's down in population. He's not really able to gather quite effectively here. He's not actually on... He's only on the one hunt up here on the backside of his base. And if it was, you know, sort of any less safely positioned, I think Crimson would have circled him out of the edge of the map there too. It's just that there's this town centre here. This nicely positioned tower actually. And all the houses of Chandler's is just being snuck in the middle here. So Crimson in the meantime, his age... Thought he was taking age 3. Yeah, here we go. He's taking age 3. Why have you got these guys garrisoned? What are you doing, my boy? Now the bowmen are just running in. I've got no idea where they're intending of going. Crimson has just managed to throw away a whole bunch of bowmen. But he's managed to pull Chandler's army over this side of his base as well. I thought he was going to maybe try and hit over here. So Chandler is desperately holding on, but is really far behind in score. Crimson has a lot of resources in the bank, has the age advantage, Another stables from Chandler being thrown up now. So he's on 3 stables himself. I think it's probably fairly even with Crimson in terms of production facilities. I mean, he doesn't have the ranges, but he's got all these stables, so... Come on, guys. What's with the stalling? There's a small number of Chandler's cavalry try to move out there, but not before being flanked by Crimson's much larger army, who's got a big supply lead here at the moment, actually, and this is quite a nice fight for Crimson, really, I'd say. Because the bowmen are nicely all tucked away at the back, and there's a couple of mounted archers here for Crimson that have been mixed in as well. They're going to be dealing some nice damage to the Yasabara count of Chandler's, but in saying that, Chandler still has a nice amount of population behind this, and I think Crimson was perhaps a bit overextended. A lot of units for Crimson actually falling there. But he does have the economic advantage behind this, so Chandler, any units Chandler loses in this position are going to hurt him a lot more than Crimson, so to speak. But in saying that, he's doing a wonderful job at holding out so far. And both players have a lot in their production queues behind this. Population lead is down to only about 20 now. So it looks as though Chandler's actually doing a good job at holding here. But there's a bunch of immortal camps and a fortress being thrown up here from his opposition, so Crimson doing a great job at spending everything he's got in the bank here. Still got a population lead. Chandler's forces are still coming up right now. They are quite low. There's not a lot of reinforcement for them at the moment. He's really low on food. Crimson also quite low on food, but he's just got so much more map control at the moment. I think he's got so much more opportunity to take things like hunts and berries around the map. If Chandler loses this force, this could be it, but if he keeps pushing well here, he could turn the tides. This fortress of Crimson's perhaps a tad late, because it's going to fall now. And there's not really any other static defense in Crimson's base here. There's all these production facilities quite close up to Chandler's base. Crimson's even got houses this close to Chandler, so it's a little bit dangerous for him, and he's only just managed to hold off. But in saying that, Chandler's dipped under 100 population, is really going to be starving for units. Quite a lot of low units. He doesn't have a huge amount of closely packed storehouses to try and get them all to full health quick. And Chandler is just now taking his age 3. And Crimson's actually activated rigorous training. He wants to be able to get out a whole bunch of units quite quickly. Doesn't care about the cost. He wants to take advantage of the fact he's already got a small population lead. Turn it into a big population lead from here. Try and utilize some of that eco that he's actually got. A bit of an eco lead already. Funnel it into units and push to win, I think. But Chandler, he wants to have absolutely none of that. He's doing a good job at defending so far. The opening was a bit rocky, but I think he did a good job that last fight there to try and turn the tide. And he's taking age 3 behind this, so he's going to be able to get his own mounted archers, his own immortals. So it's 100 villages to 69 at the moment, actually. Crimson is just gathering everywhere. A bunch of Yasabara coming across to try and deal with the mounted archers. So the mounted archers are ranged tagged units that counter cavalry, and the Asabara are cavalry tag units that counter range. So it's a bit of a bloodbath, that one, when they run into one another. This is a big force of Crimson's actually going up over here, taking a watch post. Thought he might have just gone for another storehouse. He's going to push into Chandler's base right now. And Chandler is going to look at doing the same, pushing in to Crimson's south side base. And Chandler responding in time, trying to defend back at home, while Crimson doesn't have a huge army. Crimson's army is actually quite small. Because of his huge economy, he doesn't really have a big army at all. Another bunch of Asabara heading through Crimson's base. So Crimson is scrambling to have to try and defend against this, but in saying that, Chandler's had to defend a lot at home, so he hasn't really had the opportunity to really push out and gain any more of the map, except for perhaps over here. There's a lot of villagers actually on that gold mine. But he is getting some good villager kills here, and Crimson is still producing workers at this stage of the game. So Chandler's actually recovering a lot of gold from the edges of the map here, and he's going to actually find all these villages and these markets over here. It's not going to be too good for Crimson, who's got a lot of idle villages as well. So both players panicking for a little bit of gold. Crimson's actually not on any gold. I don't know if he realizes he's actually got this gold mine, or these two gold mines here in the center to try and take. Or maybe he's just trying to take as much gold out of here as he can before Chandler manages to recover doing so. There's a fast fortress coming out here from Crimson. If Chandler sees this, he's going to be able to interrupt it though. So, a bit greedy from Crimson. So Chandler's going to be able to punish that. And in the meantime, Crimson instead punishing this gold mine of Chandler's. So, I wonder if Crimson now has the advantage over Chandler to be actually able to push to win here though. Because it seems to be the fact that he's been so heavy on his economy, he just hasn't had the unit count to really push into Chandler. He's only got a 20 villager lead now over his opponent instead of about 30. But in saying that, because that gap is smaller, now his army size is no longer much smaller than his opponent's, and GG. Chandler does eventually tap out. So 75 villagers to 104 in the end there. So that's GG. Looks like Crimson's early pressure really helped him hem in Chandler there and keep him locked down to that tiny corner of the map for pretty much the entire game until right up the end there, where he did sort of spread down here, but then by then sort of too little too late. But Crimson's villager count, holy crap, peaking at 112. Basically his army size at some point could have been no bigger than about 50. Crazy, crazy stuff. Anyways, GG guys, we got map number 3 coming up, so I'll just be 1 second. Alright, so for game number 3, we're going to have Watering Hole. The Crimson versus Chandler. I think Chandler might have had to duck out for a sec. Cool. Alright, cool. Sorry about the delay there, guys. So, we're starting. Watering Hole for game number 3. We've got Babylon versus Persia. And fingers crossed, this will start. Alright, perhaps not. Switch to Norse, actually. Not that it matters what civ the spectator's playing. Dude, they reskin the Spartan special store icon. It looks cool. But anyway, I sort of swapped because I wanted to show the donator icon. I mean, donator list icon. Give you guys a bit more of an incentive for chucking in $1. And trust me, one day you'll look back and go, damn, that was a good investment. Alright, so game number 3, attempt number 3. I'm getting a bit hungry, guys, so if this doesn't start in the next 5 minutes, I'm just going to have to cut my arm off and eat it, because I'm not getting up. There we go. So we got Watering Hole, Babylon versus Persia. So starting off in the bottom corner, we've got the blue Babylonian player, Crimson, and in the top corner, we've got the red Persian player, Chandler. There's an early barracks here from Crimson. Using his town centre to actually get the deer kill there. Bit creative. Nice, nice. That's what we like to see. Bit of creativity, bit of flavour. So what flavour has Chandler got prepared for us today? Rotated storehouse, nice, nice. Now this is quite a big map, which lures people into thinking that they're safe, and then they get rushed. Like all big maps, all good big maps do. Man, pre-size adjustment, this map would have been huge, man. There's 3 early spears already. 4 early spears. And he does see the hunt. So he's going to rally straight onto that, I think. Oh no, once he gets 2 or 3, he's going to rally straight onto that. Might be worth bringing his scout back, double checking the path that the spears are going to take, and clearing out any wolves. Meanwhile, Chandler should be praying that there's 5 sets of wolves in between where the spearmen are going to go and where the hunt is, because that's great for him. And he's taking a quick age too. There's a couple of spearmen already on the way over. 3rd and 4th in pursuit. 5th one not in construction just yet. I don't think Crimson's got the gold, or he's just gathering it just now. I haven't played on Watering Hole for a little while myself, I don't think. There's no production facilities for Chandler just yet. The H2 has just finished up, and he's actually queued up Pickaxe straight away. Cancelled it and gone Handsaw. It's an early archery range for him now, but Crimson might be able to snipe this. Does manage to deny it. So the archery range is going up now, a little bit slow. Crimson in the meantime still in age 1. Getting his age 2 on the way now. And being Babylonian, he's going to get a nice villager lead out of that fact. It's 4 villagers up. Persian player is forced to have to try and throw up that panic archery range with 8 workers, costing him a bit of gathering time. So Chandler is a little bit already on the back foot, even though he's got that range, which is the counter to the spearman. As long as Crimson doesn't overinvest in the spearman and follows up with something to kill the range himself, he's already in a really, really comfortable position, and Chandler is already in a really, really scary one. So Bronze Age now for Crimson. He's just got his age 2. Neither player's looked at taking the waterline just yet. But if Crimson can continue to hem in Chandler here, he's going to be able to take it pretty safely behind this. So the spears pulling back now, denying a little bit more gathering time of Chandler. So he's sort of forced to gather from this single gazelle that's managed to come all the way over here from this starting hunt, I think. And Crimson in a nice spot to try and get his second town centre, but Chandler's is going to be a little bit quicker. In saying that, he's got so much wood in the bank, he may be able to throw down a couple of production facilities or a dock from here. And he's going to take a dock. The bearer is going to get finished off against these crocs. So Crimson's actually having to pull his villager away from his dock to get it constructed. Chandler has his second town centre up already, while Crimson's is still just on the way. He's only got a couple of villagers actually building it. 3 villagers. I think Chandler had his built by 10? Or 9 maybe? So it got constructed much, much faster. And right now there's a whole bunch of shield bearers coming out for Crimson, so they're going to be able to tank a lot of the damage from these bowmen. Chandler doesn't seem to have a lot of bowmen at this stage. He is queuing them up and building them, but he's not continuously doing it. So he's constantly having one drop out of production, and then he's got to queue up another. And it does mean that occasionally it does mean that those seconds are adding up, and he isn't squeezing out as many as he possibly could be at this point. But neither was Crimson with the spearman initially. But now that he's got the shield bearers coming out, I think he probably will just do just that. Because the shield bearers are going to be his main hope against these bowmen until he can manage to get lancers or ranged of his own out in the field. And it's quite smart of Chandler to keep producing the bowmen, because he's going to be able to pick all these spearmen off quite quickly, and he probably didn't even need to have to worry about pulling all of his workers back there, perhaps just one of them. So Crimson not taking the biggest advantage of his initial opening as he could have, I don't think. Probably stuck with the spears a little bit too long. Once he saw that his opponent had taken the range. But Chandler doing a nice job at defending here. He's got a good bowman count. It's going to take a little bit of time now that Crimson has spent so much on gardens, on the dock, whatnot, for him to get enough stables out, or for him to get the stables up or the range up and get enough units out to counter the range of Chandler. But Chandler's going to be sort of fine for the next couple of minutes at least, and he's going to be able to maybe look at getting himself set up to try and raid his opponent now as well. So the scout is going to get the watch post up, but I think Crimson's just going to take it quite quickly. Or he should. To deny the vision, but in the meantime Chandler transitioning to the Asabara, so Crimson, I don't see a stables at this point in time. Oh no, actually, here we go. Sable's end range being produced near the dock, so this is quite smart actually. Cutting down the travel time. He's going to be able to get enough Lancers here to be able to jump straight onto the ranged and try and pull the Asabara off his infantry. Range coming up now. Chandler's actually got 4 Asabara heading across the map. Didn't get seen by Crimson, so this could be quite dicey for Crimson. Chandler could do a little bit of damage with this actually. And the Asabara will trade quite effectively with the Lancers, I believe. But they don't see the workers there. They are going to find these structures actually. But he's gonna avoid going for the house to start with. Going to try and take down the dock. I think he might have been best off trying to take the fishing boats to begin with, and the house while it was still being constructed. Meantime, Crimson getting very close to Chandler's storehouse there, but not sticking around to deal any damage. He's actually pulled everything back rather than just trying to repair back at home. The single spearman is a very, very brave man. So one of the gardens for Crimson does fall. And in order to replace that, he's going to have to spend 140 resources to get another one back up. So quite critical that Crimson defends these before Chandler can really destroy a lot of his economic advantage from the start of the game. They're only quite squishy structures. And he isn't going to get this one though. So Chandler just short of pinching another garden off his opponent. Crimson has all of his army back there though, and has sort of given Chandler a bit of breathing space now. But there is a Bireme here, so it's going to be quite difficult for Chandler to actually expand onto the water at all. And with this water lead now, it's going to be hard for him to stay on top of the game, really. The big economic disadvantage to be down docks. And on a map like this, it's very hard to just try and play catch up and throw a quick macro dock at the back of your base like you can in Mountain Crossing. But he does have a nice count of these Asabara. He's going to keep trying to deal damage with those. And this time he is actually going to catch a whole bunch of workers. With Crimson managing to rally all his workers back and get some units back across to try and help them out before they actually get latched onto. So he's going to try and minimize the damage he takes here and try and put Chandler on the back foot here. Chandler's done a nice job of catching up in terms of the score. The score lead for Crimson was quite large at the start of the game. I mean, not the start of the game, off that initial spearman push, but now it seems that Chandler is really only down by the water. Chandler actually running his cavalry all the way through his opponent's base, not stopping to take any fights. Just running all the way around. He wants to know where Crimson's cavalry are, and I think he suspects that he's under attack himself, and he's brought them back in anticipation, which is a good idea because Crimson is going for his berries over here, and over this side he's going to do the same and try and go for these berries. So Chandler's food economy right now is going to be in a pretty hairy situation. Because without even being able to gather these berries, he's going to be forced back onto the farms. And when your opponent has got fishing boats, if you're forced back onto farms, you're at a major disadvantage. And looks like Chandler being baited here onto the water by Crimson, but I don't think it's going to work that well. The Asabara are sort of taking enough that a couple of shots from the Bireme isn't going to be the end of the world for them. They're not like the infantry or the range, who just get absolutely decimated by ships. So this is actually a fight that I think Chandler might be better off in here. That's a lot of bowmen for the Persian player. Not a lot of a backline for the Babylonian player. And a lot of Crimson's units there fall simultaneously actually. So it'd be interesting to see if Chandler can actually hold against this parade push, because he's got a good unit count against it, a good composition against it. So more spearmen being mixed into the front line here for the Babylonian. I suppose given the units that they've got on offer, both civilizations are going to find it quite difficult to try and outright end the game in a fight at this stage. They've sort of got to push for age 3, and Chandler's actually got his age 3 up a little bit quicker than Crimson here. Which is probably not so good for the Babylonian player, because if they really want to be able to break their opponent from here, they really are going to need to take advantage of oh, they're mounted archers, sorry. Yeah, they're really going to need to take advantage of having mounted archers in order to deal any damage to the Asabara, because otherwise the Persian can just keep playing this build that Chandler's got here of just Asabara bowmen and really drive a Babylonian player with a small edge actually back out of his base. So things really aren't looking so crash hot for Crimson all of a sudden. The Barium has just popped, but it's not going to be enough, and Chandler's really managed to turn this one around, it seems. The dock is actually completely surrounded. There's nothing left on the water for Crimson, so he's lost this water advantage. Chandler's taken his third town centre already, and he's up to 65 villages. He's a little bit behind Crimson in terms of his villager count, but his army size is just that much bigger. So the real tell here is going to be if Crimson can rebuild his houses in time to keep his army size relatively big enough to ward off Chandler here, because even though he's got that villager lead, he's also down in terms of army size by about 20, even on equal population. And he's not on equal population, he's about 40 population down right now, and there's a huge number. There's 28 Asabara, 17 bowmen, there's even some Takabara being mixed in from the Persian player, so Chandler is in a really nice transition behind this with that age 3. Crimson only just now getting his age 3 and getting a couple of mounted archers up, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. I think Chandler's really managed to force him back here and break him. Crimson doesn't have a lot going on the map here at the moment, whereas Chandler again is back up by about 60 population. It's a bit of a reminder of the first game, really. More production facilities of Crimson's falling. Every single one of them just about has fallen now. He's back down onto 0 army production facilities at all. He's got nothing here to defend himself here at home. He's got a fortress, a single barracks finishing off. Even the ziggurat goes down. Goodbye to priests. Goodbye to aging up anytime soon. Sorry, I completely forgot these archery rangers, but rangers alone are going to be basically useless for him. He needs stables. He needs barracks in particular, and without them, I don't think he's got enough. Chandler seems to have done it. GG. GG, well played, Chandler. GG, well played, Crimson. Wow, I didn't expect that finish to that series. So Chandler cutting his villager production right on 62, and then just beefing up his army, getting a much bigger army count. Well, actually taking a fight with an army of roughly the same size, if not slightly smaller, and then just turning it around and winning from there. GG. I think Chandler really picked a really good fight compositionally there with the bowmen and the Asabara against Crimson, and like I was sort of saying, it's a bit hard, particularly for the Babylonian player in that situation, to sort of attack into the other and just outright finish them off with the sort of compositions both players have there. But Chandler Just really dug deep there and just pushed through his opponent. GG, well played, guys. Alright, well, thank you for watching. I've got to go play some games myself. And I'll see you guys later. Here, look. 2-1 to Chandler. GG. And I'll see you guys around, eh? Cheers for the games. Cheers for coming along, tuning in, all the support. Try and get some mates into it. We need to get some bigger crowds. Need to get some more donations. I really want to have the cracker of a tournament come February, March, because we're going to have the Romans, and then we're going to have some really, really sick content. The Scorpio Siege will be really, really cool to see in practice, I think, as well, considering that there's finally going to be some Siege that's primarily dedicated towards actually fighting units, as well as, you know, rather than sieging buildings. So I think that's really going to be a cool addition to the game. And yeah, just all the new playstyles and stuff we're going to see. Anyway guys, take it easy. I'll be on ladder soon. Gonna go have a feed and come play.